All right, so with today's assignment, we're actually doing possessives, and in Spanish, we do not use apostrophe s to indicate any kind of possession. In fact, in Spanish, we don't use apostrophes for anything. They don't exist. There's a couple of ways then in Spanish that we show possession. Number one, and this is the bulk of the lesson, at least in your textbook, we use what are called possessive adjectives. Okay, so what is a possessive adjective? Well, in English, it's words like my and your and our, his and her, things like that. Okay, now in Spanish, of course, we're looking at it slightly different, okay, because, for example, the word my has two forms, me and niece, okay? What is the difference? Well, both of those words mean my, okay? But we use me, okay, if the thing that you possess is singular. So, for example, mi libro. Okay? You have one book, mi libro. All right? If you have more than one book, it's mis libros. Okay? So, more than one book. All right? So, my book, my books. Okay? The English equivalent would be if we were to say my's books, which we don't. All right, so it doesn't really translate directly into English. Your in the familiar, okay, which would be if you're speaking to someone in the tu form, okay, is either tu or tus. All right. Now, if you recall my lecture on accents, remember that one of the reasons why we do have accents is to distinguish between homonyms, okay, because tu with an accent means you, and tu without an accent means your. All right, and just FYI, if you don't put accents on your test, you do get half a point taken off because you've basically just given me two different words. Okay, so in this case, same thing. It depends on whether it's singular or plural. So, tu libro, your book, tus libros, your books. All right? So, doesn't matter that there's only one of you. The singular or plural is determined by the possession, whether it's a singular possession or a plural possession. Now we get to one of the harder ones, okay? And that is our. If it's you and someone else, when it's we, okay, or in Espanol, nosotros, okay, not only are you taking into account singular and plural, but also masculine and feminine. But it is not whether the speaker or the owner is masculine or feminine, it's whether the object, okay? So you can say, nuestro libro, our book, if you and your best friend are sharing a book, okay? Now, if it's two girls sharing a book, it's still nuestro libro, because the book is masculine, okay? Nuestra mesa, our table, okay? Even if it's two guys that own a table together, it's still nuestra mesa, okay? Our table, because tables are feminine, all right? Nuestros libros, our books, and nuestras mesas, our tables. So, picking the correct form of our, all right, you need to decide whether the object, the possession, is either masculine or feminine, and if it's singular or plural. Okay. Finally, and this one's fairly easy, but it gets a little bit confusing because, as I'm sure some of you have noticed in Espanol, sometimes we have a word that means like two or three different things in English. Okay, And this is kind of like that. Let me just angle the camera a little bit down, okay? Because if you want to say his, her, its, their, or your in the plural, like your, alls's, and also like your in the formal, in the usted form, there's only, well, two words, su and sus. And so the only difference is it one thing that's possessed, or is it more than one thing that is possessed? Okay? So if you say his book, it's su libro. If you say her book, it's su libro. If you say their book, it's su libro. Okay? So how do you know the difference in meaning? Well, context. Obviously, you have to look at the rest of the sentence or at the rest of what's being said. Okay? And the only time you would use sus is if you have more than one book. All right? So sus libros. So if you say his books, sus libros. Her books, sus libros. Okay? Their books, sus libros. All right? If you have any questions, feel free to email.